I've chosen this bush to demonstrate pruning on for you today. It's already pretty well balanced, so it's going to be an easy one to demonstrate the rose pruning on. The first thing you want to do when you're pruning any rose is to really take a look at it, because as you're probably aware, once you cut a branch off, of course you're not going to get it back again, and if you make a mistake, it can really affect the ultimate shape of the rose. So the best thing to do is to prune slowly, keep looking at the plant as you go along to see if the shape is like you like it to be, and then you can always prune more. You just can't put things back, obviously, that you've taken off. So the key to pruning a rose is you want to kind of clear out the center portion. So you'll see on this one that there are some branches that are coming over into the center. Like there's a couple of branches right in here that are growing this way. And I think I saw one, there's one right here, same thing. So what I would first do with this rose, first let me back up. You want to ultimately end up with about 4, maybe 5, hopefully as evenly as possible, spaced canes around the outside of the plant. And you'll see at the end what we'll end up with. But the first thing I do is try to get rid of those branches that are crossing over in the center. So on this plant, what I would do is there are 2 right in here. You can see they're going to the center. I would take those completely off. And when you're taking these branches completely off, you want to cut it as close to the cane that it's coming off of as possible. So you can see already that's really cleared up the center of that plant. Now the light's going to get down in it better, and it'll be a better shape for next year as it starts growing again. There's another branch that's kind of odd here. It's kind of going to the center and out to the side. And because I have these branches over on this side, I think we can get rid of that one too. So I'm going to take that one completely off. And then a couple more that are bothering me as far as going into the center are this branch right here. You can see it's going into the center. Get rid of that one. And then there's one right here, which is definitely going into the center of the plant. We'll take that one off. Okay, now you can kind of see if you look down into the plant that the center of it is nice and open. So that's how you want it to be. Now we're going to start thinning out even a little more because we're not finished yet. And one thing about rose pruning too that I want to tell you is that you can prune them very heavily. Most people do moderate rose pruning, and the thing about it is if you're growing roses for show, you're entering them in a flower show or something like that, you might want to prune them really drastically. Some of the people that show roses prune down to 3 canes. One of them might only be 2-3 inches long. Maybe one would be 4 inches long and 5, and so you can see that would be real short. And what that does is the first crop of roses that bloom in the spring, when it's pruned drastically like that, the flowers will be really large. But for most home growers, they're more interested in profuse flowering. So in the spring and in the fall, you'll still have large flowers when the weather's cooler, warm but not hot. But they won't be really huge. But for most people, I'd say moderate pruning is more what you would want to do. So I'm going to do moderate pruning on this rose. Now you'll start to have to make some choices here. So on this cane, I like to end up in the situation where you have some single canes coming up here. You don't have the situation where it's branching off. So I'm going to need to make some choices on this cane as to whether I want to keep this one here. I know I don't want to keep that one because that's small and twiggy, or do I want to keep this one? And my decision is going to be based on the fact, in this case, that I have this cane over on this side. So because of that, I think I'm going to, even though this is the bigger cane, and it's okay to get rid of bigger canes, it's kind of preferable, in fact, as the cane ages and gets really woody. You know, if you've got another viable one coming up down here somewhere that's younger, like more like this, you can prune those old ones out completely and let the younger ones take over, because they're going to be more vigorous and bloom a little bit better. So in this case, I'm going to get rid of this one because there's this next one is kind of close by it, for one thing, and that's why I'm making that decision. So again, as close as possible to the cane, and take that completely off. Before you start this too, make sure that your pruning shears are pretty sharp, because if they're not, what can happen is it can actually tear up the cane, which isn't a very good thing for the health of the rose. You want as clean a cut as possible. Some of this you can clean up a little later. Now down here, I've got a little leaf coming out here. I get rid of that. All of the twiggy growth, get rid of it. And then this is going to be the cane I leave. So what I'm doing here, and we might want to zoom in a little closer here, is I'm looking for the buds along the cane. So what you want to do when you prune your last cut here on this cane is to prune to a bud, which are these little red round things. There's one right there. That's going to be a leaf coming out. So here's a bud right here. However, if you pruned above this one, the next branch is kind of going to go in this direction. So I'm looking for more or less an outside facing one. So the next branch will go out, and that'll help us maintain the base shape of the plant. So I think in this case, I could do a couple things. There's one over on this side. And actually, I think I'm going to prune to that one. So that means you can't see it from your angle, but there's a bud right over here, a little red bump. So I'll prune above that, just a little ways above it. And the best kind of cut to make is at a 45-degree angle, going this way. And what that does is now rainwater that comes, or any moisture or anything, it's going to run off this direction, so it's not really going to get on the bud. I don't know if that's really that much of a consideration in Southern California, but in wetter parts of the country, it probably would be important to do that. So I think this one is totally done. So then now you know that your next branch is going to come off in this direction. Now here, you're going to have to make a choice, because we're not going to keep both of these. And so in this case, even though this one fills the plant out right now a little bit better if I were to keep that, I think I'm going to choose this cane, just because this is not very well shaped, and it's kind of curving down there. So in this case, I'm going to take that part off completely. As you're going along, clean up the plant on the crown, get any old dead leaves off. You don't want to leave any of that stuff there, because that just is a place where diseases and things like that can harbor. So now, this rose is going to need a little work next year. What I'm going to do is, again, you can't see it. When I get over to the other side, you'll be able to see the buds a little better. But there is a bud. Usually the round little red buds are above a horizontal line, and it's actually a place where a leaf was, or a leaf will come out again. So on this one, there's a bud right here, and just because this area kind of needs filling in and I want the branch to go this way, I am going to prune above that bud. Now on this one, you can see that we have 3 branches coming off here, and we want to choose one. So because either this one or this one is going to be the straighter branch, those are the 2 I'm going to choose. So we'll get rid of this one here. And then, just because the way this one is going and it's kind of close to this one next to it, I'm going to choose that one for the one to keep. So we will take that off, and then let's see if we can find a bud over here. Yes, I see one. So you're trying to get it to all be even. If I had pruned this one back to a shorter bud, then you kind of want to get all the other canes at about the same level. And because I'm pruning kind of moderately on this one, I think I'll choose this bud right here. So there's right here is a little red bud. And again, at an angle. So there is that one. And then same thing on this one. These two won't stay. One of them's going to go. And I think the one that I'm going to have go is this one, because this will make the plant more even. So we'll get rid of this one. We will look for a bud on the outside. So there's one here, but there's also one down here. And I'm going to prune above that bud. And then, as I said before, clean up all the dead leaves around the plant. If there were any leaves down here, even though they were still green and growing, I would take those all off and let the plant go dormant and start over next year. Okay, now it's time for the tree seal. And you see these open cuts. These are the areas I was talking about before, where if you leave those open, it's more likely that a cane borer will get in there, which is a kind of a worm thing that bores down and then all the cane on top of it dies, so you want to avoid that if you can. It's also a spot where if a lot of moisture is there, it can collect and rot the cane. It's just a great place for fungus diseases and things like that. And what the tree seal does is seal that area so things like that are less likely to happen. So if you're using the aerosol type, obviously give it a good shake. Make sure you shake it up. And then just squirt it on. Don't worry if it runs down here. That's not going to hurt anything. I try to keep it off the bud as much as possible, although that's kind of hard sometimes because the bud is close to the cut. And again, it will be fine. So just go ahead and finish off and spray all the rest of the canes. Thank you, and if you would like to go to my Facebook page, Newell Landscape Design, I have tips on there for gardening things and pictures I've taken in California of plants and talk about plants, and you can post a question and all that sort of thing. So be sure to visit me there. Also, my website is Newell, Newell -landscapedesign.com. Thank you and have a great day.